Born on October 15, 1914, in Kabul, into Afghanistan's royal Baratsai dynasty, Mohammad Zahir Shah was destined for the throne but came of age during a time of cautious reform and foreign pressure. The only son of King Mohammad Nadir Shah, he grew up in the royal Arg Palace under the careful eyes of his father and the royal court. He received his early education in Kabul but was later sent to France for further studies, attending the Pasteur Institute and the Lycée Janson de Sailly in Paris. His time abroad exposed him to Western political ideas and culture, sowing the seeds of future reforms. Zahir returned to Afghanistan in the early 1930s, fluent in French and familiar with European modernism, but the assassination of his father in 1933 propelled him to the throne at the young age of 19. Too inexperienced to rule independently, the real power initially rested with his uncles, especially Prime Minister Muhammad Hashim Khan and later Shah Mahmud Khan, who governed with a conservative hand while the young monarch matured quietly in the shadows of palace politics. For the first 2 decades of his reign, Zahir Shah played a largely symbolic and ceremonial role, presiding over a cautious, traditional monarchy that resisted sweeping change. Afghanistan during this time was a fragile buffer state caught between British India to the south and the Soviet Union to the north, and Zahir's court carefully balanced its foreign policy to avoid antagonizing either superpower. Nonetheless, gradual modernization began to take root, including the expansion of infrastructure, the building of schools, and early steps toward institutional reforms. In the 1950s and 1960s, as Zahir came into his own, Afghanistan experienced a relatively peaceful period in an otherwise turbulent region. With the help of foreign aid from both the United States and the Soviet Union, Zahir Shah oversaw development projects such as road networks, hospitals, and universities. The Daud Khan era as prime minister from 1953 to 1963 was marked by assertive modernization, including increased women's participation in society, while maintaining a neutral stance during the Cold War. However, tensions arose between the royal family and Daud Khan, particularly over his provocative stance toward Pakistan and Pashtun nationalism, which threatened Afghanistan's fragile regional position. In 1963, Zahir Shah forced Daud to resign, and for the first time took direct control of government, initiating a new period known as the Decade of Democracy. In 1964, he introduced a new constitution that transformed Afghanistan into a constitutional monarchy with free elections, a parliament, and legal protections for civil liberties, a bold move that opened political space for liberal voices, students, technocrats, and a free press. However, the rapid political opening also invited factionalism. With no strong political parties and little experience with democratic governance, the parliament became fragmented and ineffective, while economic inequality and unemployment grew, especially in rural areas. The late 1960s and early 1970s saw rising discontent, student protests, and tribal unrest. Meanwhile, droughts in 1971 to 1972 devastated the countryside, leading to famine and exposing the government's administrative weaknesses. Although Zahir Shah remained personally respected and symbolically powerful, his passive leadership style and reluctance to respond decisively during crises eroded public confidence. On July 17, 1973, while Zahir Shah was in Italy receiving eye treatment and visiting family, his cousin and former Prime Minister Mohammad Daud Khan launched a bloodless coup, abolishing the monarchy and declaring Afghanistan a republic. Zahir Shah, unwilling to plunge the country into civil conflict, abdicated the throne peacefully from exile in Rome, where he would remain for nearly 3 decades. During his years in exile, he became a figure of nostalgia and national unity for many Afghans, especially as the country spiraled into cycles of coups, Soviet invasion, civil war, and Taliban rule. His quiet dignity and non-interventionist stance made him a unifying symbol, even among rival factions. In 2002, following the U.S.-led invasion of Afghanistan and the fall of the Taliban, the aging Zahir Shah returned to Kabul to participate in the Loya Jirga, Grand Council, that re-established the Afghan government. Although he did not reclaim the throne, he was ceremonially honored with the title Father of the Nation, and lived in the royal palace once again. His presence offered a fleeting moment of stability and continuity in a deeply fractured nation. Frail and elderly but still dignified, Zahir Shah spent his final years in quiet reflection, far from the tumultuous politics of the new republic. On July 23, 2007, he passed away in Kabul at the age of 92, marking the end of an era. His funeral was attended by foreign dignitaries, Afghan leaders, and ordinary citizens who mourned the loss of a monarch remembered not for autocratic power or sweeping reforms, but for his commitment to neutrality, dignity, and the dream of an Afghanistan at peace with itself and the world. Zahir Shah's reign, one of the longest in modern Afghan history, straddled tradition and modernity, monarchy and democracy, isolation and global engagement. Though his rule ended without violence, the decades that followed underscored both the fragility and significance of his cautious approach. In hindsight, many view his time on the throne as a golden period of relative peace and national unity, a fleeting chapter before Afghanistan entered one of the most turbulent phases of its existence.